Firion, what's happened? You're the Dark Knight! You'd best start explaining.
The Emperor has risen from hell.
Ricard died so that we could escape. Joseph, Minwu, Sid, Ricard, all dead. I don't know how much more I can take.
As long as the Emperor lives, more will die. Leon. Princess? Let Leon join us, please.
The Dark Knight? A rebel? I leave the decision to you. Leon, let's fight the Emperor together, please!
Maria, Firion, Guy. All right. At last, the circle is now complete. We reached the endgame, and now finally, we have Leon in our party.
The castle that appeared at the time of the Emperor's resurrection. It can only be the Pandemonium, the fortress of the Lord of Hell.
The Emperor's sold his soul to the devil.
Once, the monsters of hell poured forth into the world. They entered using a path known as the Jade Passage. I've heard that there is a place in Mysidia known by that name. The myths and fairy tales of Kajuan speak of a small lake in Mysidia. It's said that those who enter the lake are taken to hell. There's a narrow strait to the east of Mysidia. That whole area is the Jade Sea.
Well then, that was a lengthy set of cutscenes. Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome to what I'm thinking is probably going to be the penultimate part of Final Fantasy II. Yeah, and this time, we're going straight to hell. Oh yes indeedy, you didn't think it was all just for show, you know, all this talk of demons and monsters and, you know, the Emperor gaining the satanic powers of hell and such. No indeed, fear, much like hell, is a place. But yeah, I mean, the main precipice of this part is mainly just going to be part 1 of, well, pretty much our exploration of, the Jade Passage, which is pretty much our pathway to hell. And indeed, well, yeah, we're going to be exploring hell good and proper in the next part, as we're seeing where, well, the Jade Passage is, which seems to be the spawning point for where the monsters first began to pour into this world. That's quite interesting. But before we get to any of that, we do still have a few bits of house cleaning left to do before now and then. In the meantime, between now and then, is that we're pretty much going to say goodbye to a lot of the friendly characters that we've known thus far. Well, I mean, at least those who are still alive. Dear God, we've lost so many fucking friends throughout this journey. So before we go, let's say goodbye to Paul.
This time, you're going to hell? You must be the stupidest sons of... Look, just promise me you'll come back safe, okay?
No worries, Paul. Mate, you've been a real one. I mean, then again, I suppose Paul knew when to cut his losses, being a thief and all, but... yeah, I mean, you really do treasure the friends that you still have, you know, while they're still here. But yeah, I mean, now that the, well, Castle Palamesia is pretty much all stone-walled up, there's pretty much no way to access it again, so if you've got any treasure chests in there, whoopsie-doodle. But yeah, all that aside though, we do have one last bit of house cleaning to do, as, well, paying a visit to Diest, and this is something that if you want to get the game's ultimate weapon, I highly recommend you do, shortly after, well, you know, Ricard passed away, sacrificing himself so that others may live. Us.
What happened to that Dragoon man? He's coming back, right? Right?
Ricard's gone too, then. He was a noble dragoon. I'm sure he was pleased that he could die in the name of honor. I think we'll leave Diest behind and find a new place to live. There are too many painful memories within these walls. Oh, I meant to thank you for saving the wyvern egg and giving me a chance to see Ricard one last time. That's why I want you to have this. It was the most treasured possession of the Dragoons. Excalibur. With Ricard gone, you should be the ones to wield this sword.
And with that, we have obtained Excalibur. Much in the same vein as Final Fantasy I, where this was also the ultimate weapon of that game. Yeah, Excalibur is meant to be the ultimate weapon of this game. Very good with its stats, and, well, I mean, I guess if you're taking on the final boss, some might consider the Bloodsword to sort of take that spot, but, I mean, again, this still being sort of in the realm of fantasy, you know, tried and true, yeah, Excalibur is meant to be your ultimate sword for whatever reason. So yeah, that's pretty much going on to Maria, you know, previously belonging to the Warriors of Light and then passed down throughout the ages to various other Final Fantasy characters. And then gets, like, sequel variants, one of which actually has some very bullshitty stipulations of, in a Final Fantasy IX for getting Excalibur 2. Actually, if I'm recalling Final Fantasy IX right, I think it was, like, timing related and, something to do with, like, something to do with Steiner, I think. Fuck it, I can't really remember, but either way, we're on our way to the Jade Passage. There's no bones about it, and, yeah, between now and then, I did do a bit of level grinding to level up a few characters, you know, primarily Leon, because, you know, despite the fact that he was the big bad Dark Knight, you know, he apparently lost all those skills between now and then, so, yeah, had to level him up a little bit, as well as leveling up Flare and, well, Ultima. So, here we are. The Jade Passage. No lights, no airship, no radio contact. Something doesn't feel right about this. Except for the Marlboro. Marlboro, whatever's your poison, really. But, yeah, as you can see, Leon is nicely leveled up. You know, kind of appropriate, really. I figured at least, I mean, because again, as I mentioned before, you know, leveling up Ultima, although being one of the more difficult spells to level up, and, well, even Flare in and of itself, really, yeah, kind of felt like it was worth it, and plus I also used this as an excuse to get Leon at least relatively combat ready. So, yeah, here we go. Yeah, to kind of talk about how I'm really outfitting Leon here, I'm pretty much making him a sword guy with a bit of a knife thing. Slightly paying homage to the PS1 intro of Final Fantasy II, where, you know, Leon was the one who was heavy with the sword, but then Firion ended up saving his ass with some knives. But yeah, I mean, in terms of anything else, so, you know, the build-up to the finale, I mean, we are very much in finale territory here, you know, with hell pretty much on the rise, and, you know, the Emperor himself coming back as, well, Satan, really, and, the entire implication meaning is that, yeah, the Emperor, when he died, ended up going to hell. So, yeah, not only does this imply that his soul managed to, you know, infiltrate hell, kill, I suppose, what was the Final Fantasy analog for Satan, or at least one in this world. Yeah, Emperor took it over, usurped his power on throne, and, well, now it's much more powerful than ever before, and, while I was usually beating around the bush of it beforehand, this is also where the pseudo-sequel to Final Fantasy II called Soul of Rebirth comes into play. I kinda danced around it, but again, now that the necessary characters are, well, past tense, yeah, what exactly is Soul of Rebirth, as I mentioned beforehand? Well, I might have brought it up in a previous part of the commentary, but Soul of Rebirth is ostensibly, well, an after-sequel. Again, Firion, Maria, Guy, and Leon end up destroying the Emperor in Hell, but there was an artifice here, because the Emperor pretty much split his souls between his darker and lighter halves. In this case, the darker half ended up becoming, well, Satan and ruling over Hell, while the Emperor's light half ended up ruling over Heaven, pretty much relying on all of our deceased party members from Joseph, Minwu, and, you know, Prince Scott, as well as Ricard, to take down the Light Emperor. Again, the Light Emperor, you might think that, you know, due to having a lighter half, he might have a bit more of a conscience, you know, kind of thing going on, but that's not really the case. A lot of what the Light Emperor actually ends up doing is pretty much just, you know, not asking for forgiveness or trying to be repentant for what he did in life, but instead demanding that people forgive him so he can continue to reign in heaven, which, again, quite obviously, given that he was a power-hungry megalomaniac, yeah, a lot of our deceased party members say fuck you and pretty much end up, you know, going to town, beating him up and stopping him from ruling over heaven, which also kind of implies that, you know, the Light Emperor ruling over heaven means that he ended up killing God, or at least the Final Fantasy analog of God, which is kind of a scary thought, really. I mean, again, like, in terms of, you know, typical Final Fantasy behavior, I mean, the fact that you're pretty much killing the representations of God and the Devil is kind of, well, I mean, it's up there, I'll say that much, and it does give the Emperor a very credible sort of threat, in a way that a few other Final Fantasy villains don't really have, and, you know, that's also assuming, you know, more than a few Final Fantasy villains go for the whole godliness kind of route, or, you know, cosmic horror kind of thing, you know, Sealed Soul Chaos, Cloud of Darkness. I suppose Ultimecia to some extent, but yeah, it's neither here nor there in this case. Either way, yeah, sadly, you know, Soul of Rebirth isn't exactly included with the Pixel Remaster, you know, trying to be more faithful to the NES version. But as I mentioned before, Prince Scott did apparently have some battle sprites, so it was considered at one point, or at least that seems to be the giveaway, but yeah, sadly, seen neither hide nor hair of it, and that's kinda saddening, to be honest. I mean, again, I don't think the Pixel Remasters have any, like, additional content or anything else, and, as I mentioned before, it does also kind of go for a lot of the other Final Fantasy games as well. Like, I mean, again, if you play Final Fantasy IV via the Pixel Remaster, you know, you don't get to play through Final Fantasy IV The After Years, which was, you know, similar to Soul of Rebirth, a sequel to Final Fantasy IV directly, but, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit odd. I mean, you know, they've released, like, you know, bloody Final Fantasy X and its collection on, like, a HD kind of thing, but it's kind of weird, really. I don't know what to say. I guess Square Enix either can't be asked putting their games, or they're just sort of pouring all their efforts right now into Final Fantasy VII. As per usual, really. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I suppose you can't really blame them for those sorts of games being the moneymakers, really, but, I don't know. I mean, again, it does sort of leave, like, a lot of other Final Fantasy aspects really shortchanged, particularly for people who happen to be, like, really big fans of their sorts of, you know, universes, really. And I'm not talking about, like, you know, bizarro alternate dimension fighting game excuse plot sugar me doos like Dissidia or whatever. I'm talking more specifically as, like, direct connections towards their universe. You know, again, Sealed Soul was, like, you know, Final Fantasy X and its sequels, 13 and its sequels, so on and so forth. I mean, again, in recent years, I mean, if it's not just, like, a one-game deal like Final Fantasy 15 or 16, it just seems to be sort of, like, whatever, really. Which is a bit of a shame, though, because, I mean, again, I feel like Final Fantasy in its multiple incarnations could quite easily make some decent chunk of change. Like, again, I remember a couple of years ago, like, there was a... I can't tell if it was either an April Fool's Day joke or, like, a fan-made trailer for what a Final Fantasy IX remake would look like in this day and age, which looks, you know, artistically pretty faithful to, you know, the more cartoonish style that that game had, while looking, you know, pretty graphically good, so... Yeah, I mean, again, and Final Fantasy IX is still pretty popular among, you know, a fair chunk of the fanbase as well, you know, despite it being ignored by the franchise at large, really, so... Yeah, I really don't know what to say about that. In any case, so a lot of what we're going to be fighting throughout the Jade Passage is mainly just, I mean, you get a few unique enemies here and there, but nothing that you really haven't seen before, which is why I don't really have much to say on the enemy dynamics, really. We're fighting another dragon, a blue dragon, which actually, wasn't that Akira Toriyama, you know, designed an anime game for the Xbox 360 that failed because it was on the Xbox 360 and Japan really doesn't like American products? Yeah, nothing made by those filthy fucking gadgets. Well, I mean, then again, Xbox themselves have also failed in their home country. So, now they have dishonored themselves, and, well, yeah, who knows exactly what's gonna happen to the Xbox brand in the future. I mean, again, I imagine they're probably gonna just sort of, like, back down, or either keep it as more of, like, a PC, or, like, all-in-one platform kind of thing, since, especially nowadays, Microsoft seems to be all in on the artificial intelligence shite that... Well, I mean, to be honest, again, if I can still somewhat bring real life into this, seems to be a bit of a space race kind of deal, where people are desperate to figure out, you know, where the big moneymaker is in terms of that technology, but haven't exactly figured out, how to make it applicable, or how to give it a usage that's universal, really. Or at the very least, not without, you know, major shifts in the, well, economic department that would, well, let's just say, yeah. That's delving into a little bit too real territory that's, well, quite frightening about, you know, its impact on both the environment's, you know, social statures and, well, economic statures now that I think about it, but, yeah, again, that's, frightening, and I lack both the intellect and the experience to really, well, comment too much about it, other than just sort of elucidating on my fears of such. Yeah, by the way, these, ailing waterfalls right down here, they can cause damage for some reason. Why? Fuck knows. I don't know, maybe the water's too cold and Firion doesn't like that? But yeah, either way, the waterfall pretty much acts similar in vein to, like, the spiky ice floors in the Mysidia Temple, or, you know, the burning lava floors, so watch your back. Or watch your head. Or better yet, just pack an umbrella, and I guess you'd survive? Question mark? Whatever. But yeah, Flare's all leveled up, Ultima's all leveled up, and yeah, it is really worth upgrading Flare and Ultima, so yeah, not really any particular complaints. In any case though, to get back on topic and less depressing matters than real-world tensions in our current year of our Lord 2026, as life slowly spirals into a depressive swirl of bleakness and stuff. Yeah, to kind of talk about Leon's character here, you did kind of get a bit of that in the previous part where he mentioned, like, again, in typical anime rival fashion, oh, you fool, friendship is weak, only power or might can save you, but again, compared to a lot of other, you know, rival characters slash redemption arcs or whatever, really, Leon, at the very least, does have a bit of context grounding him in terms of, you know, why he did, you know, side with the Empire and took to, well, power in and of itself. And that's primarily to do with the fact that, again, he was powerless to save his hometown from being destroyed. He was powerless to, you know, save his friends, you know, when they were being hunted down by some of the Black Knights. So in turn, Leon ended up playing his, you know, lot with the Empire. And, well, as such, pretty much adopted a view set of, you know, might makes right, and therefore became the Dark Knight to pretty much assert power, really, at any cost. It's kind of funny sort of saying all of this out loud, because a certain game that I'm going to be playing after... Well, okay, maybe not necessarily after Final Fantasy II, but maybe the one after I'm playing next, is also featuring a character that needs more power. And Leon's arc in Final Fantasy II did in one game what took that series about, like, what, 15 years and fucking, like, 4 other games and 5 spin-off mangas and 2 fan novels or whatever to actually bother to even give you a fathomable idea, and still ends up being the worst character in that fucking series. Oh boy, the lampshade. She be getting mighty large and shady and fighting away like the King Behemoth. But yeah, I mean, the King Behemoth compared to the other Behemoth that the Emperor beset upon us, at least put up a bit more of a fight, so that's cool, I suppose. But yeah, in any case, so, I mean, Leon doesn't exactly get too much in terms of his character, but it is enough so that you at least, and again, I'm really talking more in terms of, you know, the direct effects of what you see in-game. Again, I still would have liked to have seen a bit more of Leon's backstory, or at least have him partner up with, you know, Maria, Guy, and Firion for at least a little bit longer than just the beginning of the game, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, I do think the Aftermath is handled relatively well, and from where Leon ends up when you get to the game's end... excuse me. Yeah, I mean, it does get pretty heartfelt, and, well, I mean, was a character arc that was slightly taken and then slightly... Well, I mean, I'd say slightly ripped off slash a little bit more fleshed out with Final Fantasy IV, where, again, that game's version of Kain actually ends up, well, sort of borrowing bits and pieces of that story arc. But yeah, there's a random fucking wizard stuck behind the waterfalls who gives you stuff. Not too bad, I suppose. Another opportunity to get flair, I suppose, so, there's that. But yeah, I mean, to kind of talk about Leon in and of himself, again, I brought up right at the beginning of part 1, you know, the whole Kingdom Hearts, oh no, Squall failed to defend his Hollow Bastion from, you know, the Heartless or whatever, and then you changed his name to Leon. I kind of get the impression that they kind of merged traits of the original Leon from Final Fantasy II into both Squall and Cloud. Because, I mean, again, you know, Leon failed to defend his, you know, hometown. He ended up becoming the Dark Knight and taking on a new identity. And then, similar to Cloud in, you know, Kingdom Hearts when he was chasing the darkness, again, presumably after also losing his hometown in Hollow Bastion, yeah, he tried to seek out the darkness to gain more power, but that ended up backfiring on him. Kinda curious, really. I mean, I'd imagine if this game was developed in the PS1 era, they probably would have had like a whole dark counterpart kind of thing where Leon must face himself to destroy himself. But, I don't know. Either way, I mean, it just kind of makes me wish that, again, had Tetsuya Nomura not had his whole spiel about, like, not using Final Fantasy 1 through 6 characters, that we could have at least gotten Leon in Kingdom Hearts, because not only would have it fit thematically, but, I don't know, in turn, it would have been a little bit more of a varietized palette of characters from the Final Fantasy series to use, rather than just, hey, look, let's use everyone from Final Fantasy 7, because fuck it, why not? I mean, again, like, some of their choices might seem a little bit odd, especially initially when you would have had, like, you know, Aya from Parasite Eve in Kingdom Hearts, but, I don't know, I mean, I prefer a little bit more of a varietized Final Fantasy roster, and, again, I mean, if it is to be believed in Kingdom Hearts 4, hopefully there will be a few more Final Fantasy characters, given the backlash that, 3 had until the Remind DLC that brought back, you know, Leon, Aerith, Yuffie, Sid, and whatever. But, I don't know, again, I doubt we'll see any Amano characters, but I don't know. I mean, it would be cool to see, you know, some characters from some of Final Fantasy's early days. I mean, even if it is some, like, rejigged interpretations. I mean, for example, I might have mentioned it before, but I would love to see Guru I Must Destroy Chaos Jack Garland, you know, in Kingdom Hearts 4, just for the sheer contrast between him and Happy-Go-Lucky Sora. But yeah, now we have another bow. We'll use this weapon never. Just like if you end up using like a hacked save emulator and end up getting Tidus's ultimate weapon during that scene in Final Fantasy X where it's pretty much like, hey brother, here use my sword, this is the one that Chapo used, lick me rude boy, it's me brother's keepsake, so take care of it, yeah? And then just gives it to Tidus and he's like, that's nice, throws it away and ends up using the ultimate weapon in that game. Dearie me. Memories of games that's yet to come. Oh dear, more violence. Again, a lot of the enemies that you're facing are either recolored variants of things you've already faced in the past, or just, well, slightly more powerful variants, really, so... It is part of the reason why I'm not really too fussed about talking about, what you're really going to be facing, although... to kind of get to, well... Actually, you know what, I might save that for the next part, since it's slightly more applicable there, because, I mean, again, the Jade Passage, which is where we are now, was pretty much the interim between, well, the physical world and hell, so... Yeah, a bit curious, really. And I'm... Actually, now that I'm seeing that, I'm starting to wonder whether or not I should put maybe a seizure warning. Because, I mean, again, Ultima is still pretty bright, although... then again, you should probably be watching these videos in a well-lit room anyway, so, yeah. I mean, it's sort of like listening to, you know, music at full volume, really. Like, I mean, you know, that shit takes a toll after a while. You know, I mean, do you cherish your fucking ears? I mean, either that or you blasting heavy metal music, in which case I highly approve. Oh, yes, Guy. Use those axes. What was once used to chop firewood is now used to destroy your enemy. But as we skip out on another battle, and we enter through this door, we will finally make our way towards the end of Final Fantasy II. So on that note, I'm Solidus-Skully, keep it new metal, and next time on the Final Fantasy II commentary, we enter hell. Knee deep in the dead, baby. Catch you next time.